Our first distinguished guest, Bala Zakka, has been waiting for a while, so we won't keep him waiting any further. So good to have you, Mr. Bala Zakka. Good morning. Good to have you join us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let's go right into it. The scarcity is persisting. People are paying exorbitant prices. There was a directive from DSS at the other time. Obviously, it's been ignored. Federal government has come out to say that there is no formal increment in the price of petrol. But many people, as at last night, still bought at 185 in Lagos and 184 Naira at the NNPCL Center. What is going on? What's your candid assessment of where we are as at today?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's what we are experiencing is a fallout of economic mismanagement. It's also a fallout of what I can, with due respect, say the lack of responsibility in the management of a nation's economy. But most importantly, when you have something that is predicated on the foundation of lies, I mean, this is the kind of backlash that you experience. Just going back just to December, you know, when we were experiencing scarcity, we were told that Nigeria had imported, proudly imported, but to me is shamelessly imported refined petroleum product, and in particular PMS. We were told that there was about 1 billion liters of PMS. And we were told that there was a kind of construction war going on around Apapa axis and that Nigerians shouldn't bother. But for me, I was already used to what I can technically tell you were national lies that we were hearing. I mean, there was a time we were told that it was recession that made us not to have enough distillates. And for the purpose of this discussion, when I talk about when I use the word distillates, I mean refined petroleum products. And I'm basically referring to kerosene, aviation fuel, diesel, and petrol. We were told that it was recession that made us not to have enough distillates. At a point, we were told that it was because of the coronavirus. We got to a point that we were told that it was because we were experiencing smuggling. And late last year, we were told that it was because of the Ukraine Russian crisis. So you can see we've really run out of lies. But the truth is that we are using the wrong economic restructuring mechanisms. And that's the simple thing. You cannot, this approach of Nigeria insisting that we will keep importing is one of the most unfortunate things that has happened to Nigeria. That's one. Then secondly, the continuous feeling that deregulation is the only way to get the economy out of the woods just made me feel highly disappointed. Because you're talking about a country of about 200 million citizens relying on less than 10,000 megawatts of electricity. You don't need anybody to tell you that you are going to experience energy crisis. And if you're going to experience energy crisis as we're experiencing now, you must resort to other ways of getting energy. But unfortunately, a lot of people, even great economic minds that I respected before, are limiting everything to just transportation. In the context of Nigeria today, diesel is an energy source. Petrol is an energy source. Aviation fuel is an energy source. Kerosene is an energy source. And there is no way you can deregulate the price of a product that has no substitute and expect that you will not see crisis. Nigeria has been reduced to a country now where you produce so much beans, but anytime you need moi moi or akara, you have to go and buy from somebody that does not even cultivate or harvest beans at all. Nigeria has been reduced to a country where you produce so much cassava, But anytime you need cassava flour or gari, you have to go and meet somebody that does not cultivate cassava at all. That's the level we have been reduced to. And it's very, 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 very unfortunate.
All right. All right, Mr. Zakka, you're a known opponent of the removal of petroleum subsidies without offering practical solutions beyond building refineries. Now, how will that work when refineries will receive their crude in US dollars?
Thank you for that excellent question. The reason why I'm against the removal of subsidy, first of all, is I want to start by defining subsidy. Then I will define leaders, then give you practical examples of how subsidy work. Subsidy is a globally accepted, recognized, tested economic pain cushioning concept. So subsidy is not a Nigerian concept. It is a globally accepted concept that is used to cushion the pains of citizens. And to that extent, if subsidy is not working in Nigeria, that will never still invalidate the global relevance and value of subsidy. Let me first then define leaders before I give you practical examples of how subsidy work. Leaders are citizens like other citizens, but a collection of citizens elected those other citizens to manage their economy, political, and social destinies in national interest. And to that extent, if those leaders are not managing those destinies very well, they can be challenged by leaders. This is how subsidy works. Today, as I speak to you, assuming we feel that the military is not working. Do you know the reason why we have the Nigerian army, the navy, the police, the civil defense and the rest is because there is a need for government to provide subsidy on security. So if for any reason some senior security agents, whether in the military, air force, customs, are diverting either equipment or monies meant for the security agents, are you telling me that the best thing to do is to remove security agents completely? No. What you do is you try to find out why subsidy on security is not working. You fight the inefficiencies. It is not the concept that you throw away. The reason why today we have health centers, we have teaching hospitals, we have public hospitals, is because government needs to provide subsidy in health. So if the chief medical directors, the nurses, and the doctors are stealing the drugs or diverting maybe the scanning machines, will you say you will remove or throw away everything about health subsidy just because some of the personnel are not doing well? That is the thing. So in the context of oil and gas, the fact that subsidy is being mismanaged, or we have economic marauders, we have economic vampires, and we have economic traitors along that line that is supposed to make us to be sufficient in distillates, that should not make you to say you will throw away the concept. And this is something that a lot of people are not conscious of. As I speak to you right now, quote me that I said, as I speak to you, a 50-kilogram bag of rice is beyond the minimum monthly wage of a Nigerian. The minimum monthly wage in Nigeria today is 30,000 Nigerian naira. And 30,000 Nigerian naira cannot buy one bag that is a 50-kilogram bag of rice. As I speak to you right now, 30,000 is the minimum wage of Nigerians per month, which even some states don't provide. As I speak to you right now, 30,000 Nigerian naira cannot buy a 50-liter jerry can of diesel. Quote me that I said any country where minimum wage cannot buy a 50-kilogram bag of rice or a 50-liter jerry can of diesel, that country is economically in trouble.
All right, Mr. Zakka. I mean, first, I like your analogy, the moi moi and the akara from the bean stain. Some other people will use the analogy of agbado corn, and not having a pap. If you're producing corn and then you can have access to pap, you will have to import it. But I'm interested in practical solutions here. I understand it fully what you have said about the propriety of removing subsidy when millions of Nigerians are wallowing in poverty. But then that the incoming government.
Let me give you the practical solutions.
Okay,
now.
Can I just quickly make that point so that you can add that?
It's very.
So that you can add that to the practical solutions.
Okay.
That there will be, and there is indeed, a 77 trillion naira debt that the government is dealing with. If we keep subsidies, are you not trying to draw us further into the pang, of debts that the incoming government will not be able to deal with at all?
Okay, thank you. And now let me answer.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the biggest mistake we are doing, or we are making here. We have removed subsidy in the prices of diesel already. We have removed subsidy in the prices of aviation fuel and kerosene. I stand to be challenged by anybody. Let anybody point out one thing that we have gained by removing subsidy in the price of diesel. But I can personally tell you that even in your studio today, and many electronic and print media stations now, you are in crisis. Many of you are finding it difficult to break even. The only thing we have gained by removing subsidy in the price of diesel is that strategic industrial sectors have collapsed, strategic domestic sectors have collapsed, and strategic commercial sectors have all collapsed. And that is why you go to banks today. Banks open at 9 o'clock and they close at 3 o'clock. The reason is because they are not breaking even. When we remove subsidy in the price of aviation fuel, what have we seen? All we are seeing are mass sack, flight cancellations, and flight delays. But we were told that when you remove subsidies, right, there will be competitive pricing. Before we remove subsidy in the price of diesel, it was around 80 naira. It is now about 850 Nigerian naira. Where are the investors that we said we are going to come? The investors are not here. That tells you it was a lie. We removed subsidy in the price of aviation fuel. Apart from the collapse of the sector, show me the investors that are coming. Show me the competitive pricing that was going to bring down the prices.
Mr. Zakka,
I'm giving you the solution. I want to give you the solution.
What are the
Then
practical
I ask a simple
solutions?
question now.
What are the practical solutions?
The practical solution is for us to tell ourselves the answers. If refining were to be a bad business, why are other countries refining and we go there and buy? Are we saying the leaders of those countries are fools? And if the leaders of those countries are not fools, who is the fool here? Recently, I had a hot discussion with some donor agencies, international creditors, and somebody also in the discussion said, well, even if Nigeria decides to refine internally, the maximum they can gain per liter, especially for PMS, will be 10 naira. And I answered him. That was how we ended even the discussion. I said, oh, so there will even be gains. And you said it's 10 naira. Then I said, fine. Then, assuming we are refining internally now, that means we will be saving 10 naira per liter. And there is this assumption that we consume about 70 million liters. Then multiply 70 million liters by 10 naira. Calculate the gain per day. Calculate the gain in a week. Calculate the gain in a month. And calculate the gain in a year. That simply means refining is the way forward. Then another thing again, I stand to be challenged by any process engineer or petroleum engineer or chemical engineer that Bala Zakka said refining is not as complex as heart surgery. refining is not as complex as kidney transplant or even cesarean operation. And if it is not as complex as that, the only reason why we are not refining internally is because of leadership docility. If we were not to have leadership docility, government is supposed to be about creating goods and services. Sometimes when I hear that independent marketers, major marketers are complaining, we keep making mistakes. Independent marketers and major marketers are private structures and establishments. But private bodies, even when you talk about private refiners, they are after profit maximization and cost minimization. They are not after resolving problems. So it is government in every country that you go to that provides goods and services. But in the context of Nigeria, government abdicates its responsibility. Government generally provides enabling environment. And let me tell you one practical reason why, if we continue importing, this economy will grind and collapse into the valley. From the importation we have been making, it's very clear that if we were refining internally, we will save the cost of vessels, we will save the cost of insurance, we will save the cost of security, and even the oil companies that are groaning in pains now will be able to survive. Because as I speak to you right now, even the oil companies, because I'm a practitioner till now, go to the oil companies, go to the oil rigs, go to swamp location and deep offshore. All those equipment you are seeing are running on diesel. And because we are importing diesel, because we are importing PMS, even those companies are finding it difficult to break even. Quote me again that Bala Zakka said, as at today, this day I'm giving you, in 2023, that the active drilling rigs in Nigeria are not up to 15. Any country as big as Nigeria that used to have up to 50 or 60 active rigs has been reduced to a country now where you don't have active drilling rigs that are up to 15. That tells you that Nigeria is in real trouble. Internal domestication is the only way forward. Internal refining is the only way forward. All those lies that we must bite the bullet, we must do this, between you and I are lies. And I stand and I'm ready to have this conversation and discussion with anybody across the globe, from the smallest bodies up to the level of OPEC.
All right, Mr. Zakka, but you failed to answer my first question as regards to refineries. How is it going to work? How are refineries going to receive crude in US dollars? How is that going to work? And how sustainable can that be?
Let me answer. It's a very simple and straightforward question. Nigeria is a member of OPEC. And if Nigeria is a member of OPEC, then that means Nigeria is supposed to learn lessons from how Saudi Aramco works. Nigeria is supposed to understand how, the Iranian system works. Nigeria is supposed to gain knowledge from how the Malaysian concept works. Then there are other countries that are even non-OPEC members, like Petrobras and the rest. The question is this: how are other countries that are OPEC members and non-OPEC members able to provide for their citizens? The biggest mistake people make also is to think that when you are within a country, in the context of government, you are going to sell crude oil to state-owned refineries the way you will sell to the international market. It is not done like that. Every country you go to, the crude oil you sell to the international market is sold at a different price compared to what you will sell to your local refineries. It's just like if you have a restaurant, you cannot say the rate at which you are going to be feeding your children will be the cost you will be selling your food in your standard restaurant. And let me give you another practical example of how deregulation works or removal of subsidy works. As I speak to you now, the price of bottled water in Nigeria is deregulated. Oh, there is no subsidy in the price of bottled water. But the same bottled water that you can buy on the street at 10 naira, at 100 naira, that same bottled water, you can go to a hotel or somewhere and buy that same bottled water 2,000 naira. And Nigerians are not complaining. Do you know the reason why Nigerians are not complaining? It's very simple. It's because there are other ways of getting that same water. You can get water from the borehole. You can get water from the river. You can get water from the well. But in the context of refined petroleum products like petrol, diesel, and the rest, you cannot put ogogoro in the fuel tank of your vehicle. You cannot put palm oil.
Okay,
so
all right.
Any product that has no substitute.
Okay, I won't leave the core issue just yet, but then I want you to expand it a little bit more. One, still talking about what you believe in, that local refining is the way forward. First is to find out if you think that the intervention that the Dangote refinery coming on stream will bring, do you think that will provide any succor in any significant way when it comes on stream? That's one. Secondly, you said that Nigeria is about the only country where we're dealing with this kind of an issue. But Venezuela, a big oil producing country, OPEC member, but then the economy collapsed even with all the oil that they had and local refinery at some point. So my point again, I draw you back to the question I asked earlier. 77 trillion naira debt. And the fact that crude will be denominated in USD. How are we going to deal with that if we still have 4 refineries moribund and we have a 77 trillion naira debt? How can we keep subsidies with that reality?
Okay, it's very, your questions have very simple answer. Let me start from Venezuela. Venezuela probably, apart from the quality of their crude that is probably heavy crude, which I wouldn't want to discuss, Venezuela has so much crude, more than Nigeria and many OPEC member countries. But anybody that is using Venezuela to justify the economic calamities in the downstream sector of the Nigerian economy, that person is very wicked. The reason why I'm telling you this is because Venezuela has a political problem, and Venezuela has a clash with a superpower right from the time of Hugo Chavez. You are energy journalists, you know the truth. Hugo Chavez had a clash with a global power, and the global power promised that they will collapse Venezuela. That's what Venezuela is having. Even now that we are having Maduro, as I speak to you now, there are 2 governments or even more in Venezuela. If Nigeria had gone through what Venezuela had gone through, Nigeria will cease to exist on the face of this earth. So that is what I will tell you. So anybody using Venezuela as an example, that person is very wicked. The problem Venezuela is going through is beyond OPEC. OPEC cannot rescue Venezuela. Then the other question you were asking about the denomination, and this is, first of all, crude oil is an international product. Everybody knows that. Crude oil, gold, platinum, and the rest are international products. So everything about their interaction on the international pedestal must be in an international currency, which everybody knows. Even if you are dealing with automobiles, so long as your country does not produce those automobiles, you will be dealing with international currencies. And I also know, like everybody knows, that Nigerian naira is not a legal tender. So, but internal consumption is different. Internal domestication is different. And that is what we are saying. Nigeria, another thing again, many people don't want to accept is this. Remember, the last time we constructed a refinery was around 30 years ago. From 1990 to now, you are talking about 32 years. You don't need anybody to tell you that Nigeria will run into crisis. Then the current generation of Nigerian leaders that we have had didn't deem it fit to construct one additional refinery or to even maintain the ones that they inherited. What I thought all of us were going to do was that the way everybody has been insisting that no Jupiter will stop Nigeria from having election in 2023, if we had insisted like that, that no Jupiter will stop Nigeria from having functional state-owned refineries, Nigeria will have been self-sufficient. Let me go to Dangote. I feel sorry when I hear people feeling that Dangote is the one to resolve our refined petroleum product crisis. I feel very sorry for them. The biggest mistake many people are doing, including some of my matured friends, is that people have forgotten that Dangote refinery, first of all, is a private initiative. People are just seeing Dangote to come in to bail out Nigeria. Nobody is asking to know where Dangote got the money from. But for me as an analyst, a loyal Nigerian with my experience in economics, accounting, and in engineering, I know that Dangote either got that money from shareholders' funds or from creditors. If he got the money from shareholders, is Dangote not going to pay them dividend? And the only way Dangote will pay them dividend is for Dangote to remain profitable and maximize profit. And if he collected the funds from creditors, he must pay what we call cost of debt, which is we technically call interest. He will pay the capital and pay the interest. So when people are saying Dangote is, what Dangote will only do is this. Dangote will provide what we call a stopgap. And the reason is because Dangote refinery is within Nigeria. Dangote will not need to go far to go and buy crude oil. And in like manners, if Dangote is selling as a private investor also to maximize profit and make shareholders happy or creditors happy, then we in Nigeria, we don't need to pay for vessels for transportation. We don't need to pay for insurance. We don't need to pay for security and the rest. And at the end of the day, because Dangote's products will be moved using rail lines or trains and wagons, there will be job creation within Nigeria. But let me tell you something that every time I see makes me to feel ashamed as a Nigerian. Like you all know, I have always heard that government functionaries go to visit Dangote refinery to appreciate the refinery and the rest. And I ask, when have we ever seen in the US, for instance, either the presidents or the governors going to visit Bill Gates or Mike Zuckerberg or even Donald Trump or Elon Musk and to tell Bill Gates, we are happy, we want to come and visit you, we want to greet you because we notice that you are now the one to provide all the solution to our technology. You don't do that. What you do is this: when you have citizens like Dangote doing well, you encourage them. You provide honorarium for them. You look for ways to patronize them. And you try to protect them as citizens and corporate citizens. But they must also comply with their civic responsibilities of paying taxes and levies. So Dangote definitely, his coming in will help a lot because we don't need to start paying for long distances, to be able to get our fuel on ground. And even when people look, and this is where I also feel sorry, by the time you really check how much we spend and the eventual landing cost in Nigeria, that will straight away tell you that if we were to be internally refining with state-owned refineries, Angola has state-owned refineries, Libya has state-owned refineries, even Iraq in crisis has state-owned refineries, Iran, all of them, Petrobras has, everybody has, Malaysia has. For Nigeria not to have, and Nigeria keeps importing, the only thinking within the economic leaders, or amongst the economic leaders, or some of them, is that, they are thinking in an opposite direction. And one unfortunate thing again that I hear people saying is this: many people say it was deregulation that made us to have communication boosts. It's a lie. It's liberalization. The telecom sector was liberalized. It was not deregulated. And generally, you don't run a deregulated economy when you are dealing with emerging economies. You run a deregulated economy when you are dealing with matured nations, when you are dealing with developed economies, not emerging economies or poor economies like Nigeria or most of the countries in the continent of Africa.
All right, Mr. Zakka, you earlier you talked about the differential in crude prices. But many reports indicate that it's that differential price in crude that has led to, huge corruption in the tune of 244 million barrels dedicated to local refineries.
The answer is straightforward. Everywhere you go, there is corruption. Corruption leads to inefficiency. Corruption is a monster. All those who promote corruption, especially within a national economy, are economic vampires, they are economic marauders and traitors. What you do is this: you don't throw away the concept, you fight the inefficiencies. You try to find out why a national concept and a global concept is not working. That is what you do. So in the context of Nigeria, quote me that I am saying this: if I am allowed to constitute a team, all we need is a flow chart. This flow chart that looks very simple in computer programming. If we put a flow chart from the upstream to the midstream to the downstream, quote me that I'm the one saying this, we can point out where the inefficiencies are. So what I want everybody to understand is this: it is the inefficiency we are going to fight. As I speak to you, right now, do you know that a sachet water in Nigeria is 20 Nigerian naira? By the time you remove subsidy, and I will address this 70 trillion whatever that we are talking about, a sachet water will get to probably 50 or 100 Nigerian naira. Are you doing any justice to Nigerian currency? Are we saying now we are going to start redenominating the Nigerian naira? Or are we trying to say that because of that now we are going to up the minimum wage to probably 200 or 300,000 Nigerian naira? And that's why many people still describe Nigeria as a big country, a large country, but we are a very bad economic example, we are a very bad political example, and we are even a very bad moral example.
I get you, but first I would like to correct something when you say that American governments don't visit successful tech companies or thereabout. They do. They do, such people, Mark Zuckerberg, you mentioned, they meet with American president and vice versa, just to encourage them. So it's not unusual to have Nigerian government, say nice things and try to encourage, people like Dangote or people that are doing well all over the world. That's acceptable. I thought I should point that out so that we don't carry, what may be seen as fake news when you say that it doesn't happen elsewhere. But I like the fact that you said that...
Okay, let me correct something.
Okay. Go on, please.
Let me correct something.
All right.
What I didn't say that they don't, but they don't go to tell them that we come to appreciate you because you are a one-point solution to our economies. What I said is this: you should encourage and have more Dangotes. You should have more Dangotes in education, more Dangotes in health, more Dangotes in sports, more Dangotes in aviation. And that was what I said. And do you know, when you have more Dangotes, like I said, they will provide jobs, and at the end of the day, people will earn what we call disposable incomes. And from their disposable income, people will be able to do well. And those Dangotes, again, will comply with their civic responsibilities of paying taxes and levies. And let me tell you how regional economies grows. Ordinarily, as I speak to you now, Nigeria is more of a gas nation than an oil nation. The proved reserve of gas in Nigeria is in excess of 200 trillion cubic feet. And the potential gas reserve of Nigeria is in excess of 600 trillion cubic feet. Do you know that from natural gas alone, you will get ammonia? From ammonia, you will get urea. From urea, you will get fertilizer. That alone can be used to boost agriculture and food security. But as I speak to you, I'm from the northern parts of Nigeria. A bag of fertilizer that used to cost 3,000 Nigerian naira is close to 25,000 Nigerian naira.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we have a lot of gas.
Okay.
From natural gas alone, you will drive gas turbines and generate electricity. Why are we not exploiting that?
Okay, all right. Before we let you go, Mr. Zakka, let's circle back to the question of the 70 or 77 trillion naira debt that you said that you will answer, and how subsidies have contributed to getting us to where we are. If we keep subsidies, are we not going to go down deeper, into that abyss of debt? And lastly, maybe by a word or two, how can we come out of this current quagmire that we are facing? People can get fuel and they are still buying at exorbitant prices. Thank you.
Thank you. In the context of the subsidy, the answer is straightforward and is also easy. What we are going to do when you come across an economy that is messed up like that, you hold the economy at that level. You don't allow it to go below what it is. The question we are going to ask now is this. We need to look at what Nigeria is suffering from as suffering from energy security. So when I hear some people saying we are subsidizing consumption, I feel sorry for them. Because that petrol you are seeing, the guy that has a computer center, the guy that has a business center, the hairdressing salon, the barbing salon, to you, he is consuming. But to him, that petrol or diesel is a catalyst that will make him to get to a particular point. So the biggest mistake that people are making is to think you are subsidizing consumption. It's no. People need it as catalyst, because if there were to be electricity, there will be glut at the filling station. You will sell a liter of petrol, 50 naira, people will not buy. So people should stop feeling that petrol that you are selling, you are subsidizing consumption. To you, who is selling, they are consuming. But to the people using it, it is helping them for processing. So it is just something that they require in their production process. Then another thing again about the amount we are talking. Let me tell you the danger. When I hear people saying, bite the bullet, you have already beaten the bullet on diesel, you have beaten the bullet on kerosene, you have beaten the bullet on aviation. Apart from the collapse, what have you seen? So when you bite the bullet on PMS, the biggest mistake that will happen is the economy will collapse. And I hear some people saying, when you remove the subsidy, then you are now going to provide palliatives, provide this. And I told them, this is where I even feel ashamed of myself as a Nigerian. If you say remove subsidy before providing palliatives, it's just like you saying create a wound, then start looking for drugs or medicine to heal it. What if the wound becomes cancerous? And I also hear people saying, if you leave petrol is the big men that are benefiting. And I said it's a pure lie. That big man that has 5, 6, or 7 cars for mama, baba, and the nannies, the drivers that are driving those cars, are they not being paid? That same big man is the owner of the business center, is the owner of the barber shop. So if you make the petrol or diesel so expensive, so that big man will not be able to run it or be able to have cars for all those ancillary activities, and he sacks all those drivers, will Nigerian government provide jobs for them? And that same big man, if you make the price of diesel or petrol so expensive so that he cannot run all those shops and he sacks the workers, will anybody in government provide the jobs? So the biggest mistake people do is to always think you are subsidizing consumption. People don't drink this petrol. Nobody drinks the diesel. The only reason is because we don't have energy. And it is very clear also today that Nigerians are creative. Nigerians are ready to fight it and survive on their own. You have seen it. But the problem they have is they cannot afford electricity. Youths will want to use the computer to be creative and the rest, but after an hour or two, the computer will go off. There is no light. And if there is a generator, it's either a petrol or diesel generator. They cannot afford diesel. So they go to the filling station to want to buy petrol, and they cannot get. So if you try doing that, you will collapse them. But for me, what I keep telling people is this. In restructuring an economy can be, there are 4 mechanisms for me. You guys may know more. You can either liberalize an economy, it will do well. You can deregulate an economy, it will do well. You can commercialize an economy, it will do well. You can even privatize. So all these 4 restructuring mechanisms, whether privatization, liberalization, commercialization, and deregulation, they all work. But you need to look at the sector before applying it.
All right.
If not, you will grind the Nigerian economy into a bottomless pit.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Bala Zakka, petroleum engineer, accountant, and tax expert, for your contribution on the show.